Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Perpetuality. It's been about a month since I dropped my last video, and for good reason. My 9-year-old MacBook finally died on me. But I'm back, and it's good to be back. This isn't 2020, I know what you're thinking. Blue dial, steel, integrated bracelet, and both very similar too. I brought on these two watches to review and check out because I haven't seen a video comparing them just yet, so I hope you find some value from this video. Now, the Tudor Royal is really the least popular watch of 2020, or at least from Tudor. The internet did not like this watch. On the other hand, the PRX, there was a lot of hype surrounding this, and when it was quickly released, or rather when it was released, it was quickly sold out. I'm going to talk about the specifications in just a moment, but I'll lay them out on a screen for you to enjoy, and I won't bore you with the details. You might be thinking I'm nuts for making this comparison. Just on price alone, the Tudor is 3 times the going rate of the PRX. But that isn't the point of this comparison. The PRX really has no competitors until you look twice, if not 3 times, its value in terms of integrated bracelet sport watches that are steel and have an interesting dial to look at. I wanted to highlight the differences of what you're getting for your money, and really this is the whole point of the review. To me, a watch is valuable when I feel like I can wear it a lot, and when I feel like I can wear it a lot, it's down to the size and how it feels on the wrist. And the Tudor Royal is an exceptional wearing watch at 38mm in diameter and 44.8mm in lug-to-lug length. It's hard to believe that there's about a millimeter of separation between the PRX and the Royal in lug-to-lug length, but the Tudor Royal seems to wear better at 38mm than the 40mm diameter of the Tissot PRX. Now you'll see on my wrist here, as I'm resting there, the PRX wears more flat. It's got the same depth, but the lug-to-lug length or the lug design lends for the bracelet to be more angled down to the wrist. And I feel like that's a nice feature, but there's a lot more dial estate on the PRX. When you look at them side by side, you notice right away that the Tudor Royal and that engine-turned bezel really miniaturizes the dial. The overall case elements of the PRX are impressive, and I think the biggest thing that stands out is the finish work. And the impressive quality at that, you can see that the fine satinated steel catches light on every link. There's almost a bit of dynamic light play, if you will. I can stare at this bracelet and really just flicker it in the light endlessly. It is a solid design with solid end links. There is a butterfly mechanism, deployment clasp rather, that allows you to center it on your wrist, and I like this system because it's comfortable. I don't like it because it's fussy. And some of you might argue against me that it's hard to implement this on this style of watch. You'll see the Powermatic 80 in the rotor sweeping around there. And I have to comment that the overall feeling of the clasp is solid. The bracelet itself is impressive for a watch that's around $900. The really positive feature of the case for me is just how thin it is at around 10.6mm. There is a fine polished line above the case that gives a little bit of dynamic feeling and separation of the two surfaces. The crown is a weak point on this watch. It's hard to clutch, hard to grab and to adjust the time because there's no ridge or notch for you to get a good purchase on it. Most of the Tudor Royal is brushed. The top side of the watch is fully brushed with the side of it being polished, and you see that there are actually holes. I believe that's for a tool to be slotted in to remove the bracelet. I think that the finish work on the Royal is excellent for the money. Even at $2,500, it is quite good. The Tudor Royal is solid in construction, it's steel all around, the bracelet is beautifully made, but there's a flaw. You'll see that the male link of the bracelet and how it attaches to the case, it will fold up on itself at some point, and there will be visible marks of wear. You see that point where it pinches against the case, it will leave a scratch on the bracelet. And I just can't fathom why bracelets are allowed to do this, other than the fact that it's a comfort thing. They should be able to flow and ebb on the wrist. You should be able to take it off as easy as you've put it on. The overall construction of the bracelet is comfortable. It reminds me of a 1601 Jubilee in the way that it flows, and that's high marks for comfort. I do enjoy the overall feeling of this bracelet on the wrist. Although I do think that an area of improvement found it hard to center the clasp on the wrist, and part of the reason why is that I have a smaller wrist. You'll notice that the overall length of the clasp will actually create a kink in the bracelet as you rest it on your wrist. It does have ceramic detents, which is nice, as there's a positive click to ensure that it's in place, but the flaw is that if you pull on the bracelet just like I'm doing here, you'll actually undo the safety clasp. That's a bit of a design flaw in my opinion. If we were scoring these bracelets on comfort alone, the Tudor Royal would win. But if we're looking at design and overall finish work, the Tissot PRX is very impressive for the money. The dial of any watch is arguably the most important part of the watch itself. It's what we interact with. In that regard, it has to be legible, but also interesting. We demand a lot from it. The PRX has an interesting and legible dial, in the sense that the deep, rich, dark blue hue allows the indices to pop. Now, this waffle patterning, it's easy to draw the comparisons to the AP Royal Oak, but it's not that. This dial lacks the depth and intricate detail of the AP Royal Oak, obviously. The indices are flat and they're simple, but they are elegant in that manner, and they seem to be applied. I can't really confirm they're applied or stamped for that matter. I can't find the details. Let me know in the comments if you know. But the printing and the execution of the printing is done immaculately, sharp, where it counts. The overall indices and the simple design of it lends for a very legible and useful appearance. There is a bit of lume, but not enough for it to be useful in my opinion. The date application is sharp, the window handsomely applied, and the hands themselves, they are clean, but they're simple. They just work. When we look at dials and we make sense of what works for us, some of you may argue that Roman numerals are not your thing. And to that degree, I think it's a preference. In my opinion, Roman numerals are elegant, timeless, and they fill in the dial wonderfully. The Tudor Royal has this handsome blue sunray. It reminds me of the 116234 date just. The way that the indices, the Roman numerals, sit on the dial, they make me feel like it's been exquisitely done to a high degree. There's attention to detail on the Tudor Royal that the PRX is lacking in dial execution. Visually, it's just more interesting to look at the numerals, in my opinion. With that being said, when we look at the sheer details, and that is the dial printing, they're very similar. They're both done to a sharp level of detail. I can't really comment too much on how they're different under my macro lens, but in the sense of looking at the hands on both these watches, the Tudor has a tighter hand stack. However, it's not perfect. There's a bit of debris and small speckles of dust on the hands. The date window, handsomely cut out, is also very sharp, and I don't mind that 3 o'clock being the way that it is. Let's bring it back together, and when we think about which one I choose out of both of these, it boils down to what you'd like out of your watch. I think the Tudor at $2,500 is a hard pill to swallow for some people. For a majority of people, for that matter, it's money that is not really readily available to be spent on this watch. They'd much rather a Black Bay, and I get that. The PRX, however, represents tremendous value for the money. The best way I can put it is that if you like the design of the Tudor, you're going to go for it. You're going to justify the cost. The finish work of the PRX is impressive for the money, but it isn't the most comfortable wearing watch. The Tudor really beats it in that regard. The movement of the Tissot is quite accurate, and I'll leave the Timegrapher results on both these watches on the screen here for you guys. Now, Tudor did not regulate the movement to be within COSC, but it's keeping 2 seconds a day dial facing up compared to the 5 seconds a day dial facing up of the PRX, both fairly accurate for what they are. The Tudor Royal caught me off guard with its accuracy of 2 seconds per day. It nearly makes up for that shorter power reserve of 38 hours, but it is inconvenience to have to put the watch away on a Friday and then wind it when you get to work on Monday. The PRX, I think, is a good balance between accuracy and power reserve, 80 hours and keeping within 5 seconds a day, though the lower beat rate leaves a little bit to be desired. If you wanted a more accurate timepiece, naturally speaking, a higher beat rate would achieve that. So high marks go to both watches for accuracy. Now, one thing that both these watches have in common is that they're not entirely original watches. The PRX reminds me of an oyster quartz and an AP Royal Oak. The Tudor Royal reminds me of a oyster quartz and a 116234 Datejust with the exact same blue color and Roman numerals. However, when you separate what these watches represent, which are integrated sport watches that are comfortable with at least 100-meter water resistance, they're both outstanding timepieces. We can't have enough of these type of watches. I'm all for something different, even though they can be divisive to the internet. Eventually, these watches have their own place. Thank you for watching. I'm going to show you the Lume in the next clip. The Tudor Royal has Lume exclusively on its hands and nowhere else, and it makes sense because the purity of the dial is on those lovely Roman numerals that are quite legible under low light as they are high polished. Now, on the other hand, the PRX, it gets away with Lume on the hour indices, but very little amount of Lume material has been used on the dial itself, most of it on the hands. Nothing to write home about. Now, if you like today's watch content, please consider subscribing, like the video, and I will definitely catch you in the next one.